Hey, what's up, guys? So, as those of you who've been watching my channel for a little bit know, I have been playing a lot of Dark Masters Control. The deck has gone through a lot of variants. And now I would like to say that that's kind of intentional because the way that the deck plays is very unique to the meta that it's in. We'll go over that in a second. Today, I'm going to be giving you not just the current deck list, but also a quick understanding of every single card that's currently in the list, why I play it, as well as its utility in certain matchups. I will also go over the current matchups in the meta that you may see. Obviously, there will be some certain rogue decks that I'm not accounting for, trying to account for majority of the meta, and at least what I saw in the most recent tournament, which was an Ultimate Cup where I got 18th place. I lost 2 times, both to Taka Mikazuchi, and every other deck felt fantastic to go against. The only deck that I really have a hard time with currently, with this iteration of the list, is Taka Mikazuchi. Otherwise, I think we are in a fantastic state. Now, before we get into any of that, I think it's really important to understand the kind of deck that we're playing here. This is, in its current iteration, a control list. You can try and make it a more combo-oriented deck. I just didn't think in the current meta it made a lot of sense to be playing a worse combo deck than what you could be playing in other spots. So I decided to make, I think, the first control variant of this list with the current meta in mind. It's comparable in a way to security control, but rather than relying on your security, you rely a lot more on proactive plays to prevent your opponent from killing you, while establishing a value engine that will hopefully take you to the end of the game, or even taking use of certain mechanics that your opponents typically have in favor of their deck, and instead twisting them in a way that makes it more difficult for them to interact with you. So, starting off, we are playing 4 eggs. Playing 4 Mother D Reaper. Now I know what you're thinking, ugh, Shoto. Well, a couple things to mention on that. One, we were playing Mother D Reaper before Shoto was released. This card was a wonderful way to get a little bit of extra value out of our eggs without having something taking up our breeding area. Though, I will keep in mind that you can still play, say, an Ukomon engine. Obviously, it's worse than it used to be, but it is wonderful draw power. The only downside to it is the fact that they're a little bricky because your searchers only search for level 6 and up, as well as the fact that they will typically end up taking your breeding area, which feels fairly bad. Back to the Mother D Reaper though, I think it's the most impactful egg for us in the current meta because a card called Shoto is available to us. And it radically changes in the positive ways that certain matchups engage. We'll get to those matchups when we talk about that later, so just keep in mind that there's a whole understanding and variance that goes on in those certain matchups because Mother Shoto is available to us. Now then, starting off with the archetypical level 5s. So these are the level 5s that are inside of the Dark Masters typical engine. We're playing 4 Gigadramon and 3 Lady Devi. And this is a pretty small level 5 engine for the Dark Masters core, but I kind of want to keep in mind that playing something out for 6 beyond turns 1, 2, without and only getting a search for your top 4 and then potentially adding 2, while it is a +1, I think it's still a little slow in the current meta where a lot of decks can really take advantage of that, as well as they're pretty easy to remove. We aren't playing any of the other colors though, because black and purple has been the core color set for this deck since BT15, because of Omnimon Zwart, the 6-cost Evo on a black or purple level 5. We'll go more into depth when we get there. Just understand that black and purple have been, I think, the key cornerstones of what this deck is really looking into from the start. So, what these cards do is, on play, reveal top 4 cards of your deck, add 2 level 6 card or higher cards from among them to your hand, and return the rest to the bottom of your deck. This will typically net you a +1, which is disgustingly good value in this current game. Typically, double hitting on a search is just, it feels absolutely immaculate. And then end of your turn, by deleting one of your Digimon, you may play 1 Digimon card with Dark Masters from its trait from your hand to an empty space in the breeding area without paying the cost. Keep in mind that this does interact negatively with cards that prevent you from playing Digimon by effect, like Crimson Blaze or Pillowmon. So don't fall into that bait. You don't have to delete this Digimon itself using the end of turn effect. It can be any of your Digimon as well, which can come up. And then much like all of the Dark Master stuff, all of the purple cards have the inheritable retile, and all the black ones have inheritable reboot. So whenever we get to Machine or Pied, I won't go over those. Other cards that you can run in the slot are obviously the Cherry and Scorpiomon, which do the exact same thing. The Scorpio provides blocker because it's blue, and the Cherry provides piercing because it's green. I just don't like them because of the fact that they are not on color scheme, and I think they limit a lot of what your aces can be. Another archetypical level 5 in the set that I've considered playing and have tested, I think, pretty copiously was Mephistomon. I was running it at 2 for a little bit, and then I bumped it down to 1, and then I ended up bumping down to 0. It has a lot of utility in certain matchups, like Demon Lords is a great example, or any deck that really just wants to delete your stuff, like Dex also provides a pretty useful utility for this card. It is a 8 cost, 4 cost Evo, which doesn't matter, 7k DP body, which lets it get past things like Crimson Blaze, so if it survives, it's fantastic. When this card is revealed from your deck, it's also treated as level 6, so it is a searchable target as well in the archetype, as well as by returning 1 Apocalypse from your trash at the bottom of the deck when you play this card, you can reduce its play cost by 3, which is a way to recur your Apocalypse without having to use something like Paladin. As well as it makes the play cost 5, which comes up actually 5 for some reason because of the amount of shows that we tend to play, can be a weirdly useful cutoff point for going in Mephisto for 5, going into a Garurumon for 0 on top of it after pitching 3 cards, and then going straight into a Zort, so that way you can get a huge value play going there. Then it has on deletion. If deleted by an effect, you may play 1 Golfmon or 1 level 6 Dark Master trait Digimon from your hand or trash without paying the cost. It's a super useful way of getting extra value from your Dark Masters from trash, as well as getting certain Dark Masters out of your hand because you want them in trash for your Apocalypse later on. It has the inheritable when attacking by placing 1 level 5 or lower card with the Dark Masters in text from your trash as Digimon's bottom Digivolution source. This card gains plus 2 DP for the plus 2k DP for the turn. Not super useful, in all honesty. It comes up slightly when you want to give one of your aces like Retaliation, but most of the time it's pretty lackluster in that sense. I was playing this card a lot, however it didn't really help in the matchups that I needed, and in the matchups where it did help, it didn't feel like it was either impactful enough or I was already winning enough in those matchups that it didn't feel necessary, so I ended up cutting it. Moving on to the archetypical level 5s. We've got 3 Mame, 3 Rapid, 2 Edamon, and 1 Wise. So I just want to go over really quick each of these cards and kind of what they provide to the deck. So we'll start off with the Wisemon here. It's a on-play, reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 purple or black Digimon card among them to your hand, and then place the rest on the top or bottom in any order, as well as gives the inheritable blocker, play cost 6k DP. This card is really useful in searching for your searchers or your other level 5s that you really need to find, as well as I think it's probably one of the better cards in a neutral board state to play off of the Zort from your trash, purely because it provides a really strong inheritable to things like your Vikemon or to your Paladin modes that I think comes up a good amount of time, as well as it also allows you to stack the top of your deck. Let's say you hit Shoto Zort. Well, unfortunately you can't add any of those, but you can still keep them on top, whereas your other searchers tend to lead them towards the bottom, which is really unfortunate. I have decided to cut this card down from 3 to 1, however, just because similar problems that I've had with the searchers is that just hard playing this out for 6 really early on feels pretty fun, but because of the way the meta is currently right now, we don't really have the luxury of playing out a 6 drop later on in the game, and even just playing this out on turn 1 for 6 feels pretty slow and kind of hampers your game plan a lot, just because of the fact that you're not really setting up a powerful body in the back, nor are you, I think, really setting up the necessary counter game plan that you need depending what your opponent's on. So it ended up being cut to 1. Moving on to the Edamon. This card is fantastic in certain matchups and is dead in other ones. It has the on-play when Digivolving effect. Until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3k DP and gains the start of your main phase Digimon attacks. It's a 7 cost, 4 cost evolution, 7k DP, and then has the inheritable opponent's turn. When an opponent's Digimon attacks, you may reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you may play 1 black or yellow Digimon card with a play cost of 3 or less among them without paying the cost, and then trash the rest. So a couple things to mention. Obviously, this is one of the best activators for aces. Playing it off of the Zort feels great too because you get a extra body plus this to kind of make either a value plan of searching or getting like a rapid out can be a way to guarantee your ace goes off, which is really good. And it can also punish your opponent for overextending and actually not making a big enough push on the crackback. However, not every deck leaves bodies up, or the bodies that leave up are less than 3k, so we actually aren't able to make use of it in those kinds of matchups, which is unfortunate. I had it at 3 at one point, but in the current meta, I think that there are enough decks that it's not as useful against, or decks have kind of tacked in a way to play around it, such as like Dragon Mode from Imperial, that it is super useful, but not useful enough to run it at more than 2. Moving on, we've got 3 Rapid Mon. This card is tacked in specifically to beat decks that bounce you, like Magnet X, the Armor Rush variant, Mirage, and Ancient Garurumon. It says, on play when Digivolving, Digivolve 1, which can be useful. You do it to one of your opponent's Digimon. It comes up every once in a while. It's not the main reason we're playing this card, though. Even if it didn't have that effect, we would still play it because of its second effect that says, then if you have a Green Tamer, until the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent's effects can't delete this Digimon or return it to hand or deck. And that comes up a lot because it essentially just says, hey, if you swing into me, I will be getting one of my powerful ace effects off this turn, and there's not much you can really do against it. I think every single deck, except for a few notable exceptions, kind of have a hard time dealing with that. Obviously, Takumi Kazuchi doesn't care, but decks like Ancient Garurumon can never really comfortably swing into this guy, because if they do go into the Ancient Garuru and then swing, you'll be able to go into a Vikemon and then de-digivolve their Ancient Garurumon, preventing it from actually getting the value that they want out of it. As well as they won't be able to bounce anything, because typically things like Dex Doru Greymon and Ancient Garurumon say your opponent's lowest level Digimon. So their Dex Garurumon says to delete all of their lowest level, and Ancient Garurumon says bounce their lowest level. Well, it will still target or attempt to delete this, protecting your other level 6s or 7s from actually getting deleted or bounced, which is, again, super impactful. The Inheritable also comes up when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle, trash the top card of their security. That's useful in certain matchups as a way of kind of getting past scary security bombs. You'll probably get this off maybe in matchups where this matters, where this card already matters. You'll probably get that off maybe like once or twice a game, which is really good. Obviously, though, you need Shoto to activate that, so we are playing 3 Mamemon. Because of how valuable Shoto is in this deck, Mamemon is, I think, a must-of, just because you need to find it in a majority, I'd say probably about 60-70% of your matchups, to feel a lot more comfortable, at least. Not necessarily a absolutely must-find in every matchup of those. Obviously, some of them are, though, super important to find. So, 7 play cost, 6k DP, Evo for 3 or 3 over a black or green. On play with Digivolving, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. You may play one Tamer card with a play cost of 4 or less among them without paying the cost, and then place the rest in the top or bottom of your deck in any order. Similar with the Wisemon, being able to choose, even if you whiff with the Mame, being able to choose just putting those top 5 on bottom, so that way you can have a higher chance of finding the Shoto going forward is really useful, but also it allows you to hit an Analog Youth and then adjust the top of your deck or the bottom of your deck in a certain way, so that way your Analog will find a better card for you going forward. It has the Inheritable, your turn once per turn. When you play another Digimon by an effect, one of your Digimon gains blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. This comes up as well, actually. Being able to have this underneath a body whenever you Zwart will give something blocker. And that is really nice into certain matchups. Obviously not every matchup, but I think this card is very, very valuable for finding those Shotos. Other non-archetypical level 5s that I've considered running in this deck include Lady WX and Zumon Ace. Zumon Ace is just a 4-cost removal spell, basically. On the crackback, though, it is kind of liability, as well as the fact that it's not black or purple, so you can't get off the Zwart. It's kind of a dud there. Your searchers also just can't search for it, so it's just a hard draw, which is why I ended up not actually playing it in reality. And then for the Lady WX, a lot of utility there, giving you a really niche blocker in the token. It's something you can do just going Lady Debbie off the Zwart, and if you're able to keep turn digivolving it for 0, is fantastic. It has a good on-play effect too, getting around niche effects like Partition. And then it has the Inheritable once per turn. It doesn't matter, actually, because it only targets level 4s. So that will never come up in our deck. I ended up not using this because I feel like our Imperial Dramon matchup is really useful, is really decent already, and it's not very useful in any other notable matchup that we actually have a hard time in. Moving on to the archetypical level 6s that we play. 2 Metal Sea Dramon, 3 Piedmon, and 4 Machine Dramon. Starting with the Metal Sea Dramon, I think that Metal Sea Dramon is one of the most useful cards in certain matchups while being completely dead in others. And that really comes down to the fact that its inheritable is blocker. As mentioned, all the blue inheritables will have blocker. This is the last time I will go over the specific inheritables in the archetype here. But it has on play when attacking, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to hand, and then your turn, this Digimon can only digivolve into white, which is the same for all of the level 6s here. And then end of your opponent's turn, delete this Digimon, then you may play one Digimon card with the Dark Master's trait other than Metal Sea Dramon from your hand without paying the cost. Again, that is similar throughout all of level 6s here. This card is nice for getting around things like Armor Purge. But realistically, it's only here to be a Blast Ace target or an Evo target for Paladin mode, which is obscenely useful in certain matchups like Yellow Vaccine, where if they don't remove this body and they swing in with their Magna X, they activate the Nyaramon to trash top card of their security, gain on memory, as well as unsuspended, gain plus 3k. You can immediately blast Digivolve into the Paladin mode, and you will be 16k to their 15, which will allow you to block them efficiently. Moving on to the Piedmon, we've got 3 Piedmon. On play, when attacking, delete one of your opponent's Digimon, own your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. This card is really useful. It falls into the purple category, which is what the Zort needs to actually Digivolve on top of. I have it at 3 rather than 4, just because I feel like the engine itself can be a little bit thick. You're usually going to be finding some number of Machine and Pied throughout the game, so you don't need to worry too much about that, just because of how deep your deck will be searching. Other than that, just the pop something and then go into Zwart feels pretty useful. Keep in mind though, you are only 11k, so whenever you do swing, depending on the deck you're against, your guy may end up getting deleted because it is a fairly small mega. Finally, we're playing for the Machine, on play when attacking the Digivolve 2. These cards are, I think, the most useful in the current meta when it comes to getting around certain effects that your opponent really is trying to make use of, such as like Dex Dorugreymon, or specifically, I guess, yeah, Dorugreymon, wanting to block your Machine, but if you swing in with it, you can Digivolve them twice, forcing them to no longer be able to get that huge impact going there. And there's a lot of cards that really does hit, because Digivolve, I think, is one of the stronger mechanics, or Digivolve is one of the stronger mechanics in your deck. And the other archetypical level 6 that we just aren't playing is the Puppetmon. This is by far the worst one in my opinion. It's green, it has the worst inheritable because of that, as well as while it's on play when attacking effect is very strong. If you do have it in raising, it's very telegraphed, so your opponent can play around it very easily. So it's the only one that you really want as a way to kind of play out secretly. It has a weird niche utility with Mephistomon in the Demon Lord matchup, where if you have Mephistomon out and this in trash, if they swing with the Agudomon, they activate the effects, your Mephistomon will end up getting deleted, but that will then allow you to play out the Puppetmon, bomb decking the Agudo that is currently swinging, which has that unique utility, as well as it is green in that sense for Paladin. Just overall though, because I think Mephistomon isn't super useful, Puppetmon kind of relegated to the bin. Moving on finally to the last of our level 6s, we've got 3 Mega Gargo, 3 Vikemon, 1 Grand Kawagamon, and 1 Melga Ace. Starting with the Melga Ace, it's a unique way to kind of get past certain people that are swinging into you that don't care about Vikemon or Mega Gargo, as a way to try and steal turn from them, which can come up. And especially really early on, your trash isn't very set up for Zwart, so you kind of have to either get lucky or find a way to set it up, like through analog. And this is another way that you can kind of do that. If you end up, say, playing out a Lady Devi or a Wisemon on your first turn, you can then, should it survive, go directly into a Melga Ace, pitch like 2 of your level 5s that are currently in hand, and then immediately go into a Zwart for a pretty big value swing on your turn 2, which feels fantastic. It also has a very niche when attacking effect to delete one of your opponent's lowest level Digimon, which is super nice as well. I just think it probably has less value than it has in prior iterations of the deck, so I've ended up cutting it to 1. I think it's still useful enough to keep in as a one of, so your purple aces have something to make, your purple cards have something to ace into that has at least some utility. Being a purple aces that have some utility, Grand Kuwagamon. I've considered cutting this card before. I used to run it at 2, and now I run it at 1. It has the on play when drawing effect, suspend 2 of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and then this card deletes one of your opponent's suspended Tamers, and then the cards that you suspended can't unsuspend during your opponent's next unsuspend phase, which is useful. It's, I think, probably the least powerful of the newer aces available to us right now, as well as it has the your turn effect. When this Digimon becomes suspended, give one of your Digimon security attack +1, which can come up as a way to try and kill your opponent. Pause, let me get a drink. Okay. I just think, however, that the main utility of this card is in matchups where you really need to remove a Tamer. It is just kind of like a hard play for that, as well as it's playable off the Zort, so it is able to be kind of like continuous Tamer removal, which I think is the most applicable utility for it. Its defensive aspects, while there, I think just aren't strong enough in the current meta to warrant it being a defensive ace in that sense. Moving on to our Vikemon. This card is really, really good into, I think, almost every single deck in the current meta. It has the on-play effect when Digivolving. Digivolve 2, one of your opponent's Digimon, then none of the Digimon with 1 or fewer sources can suspend until the end of their turn, and then when attacking, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 1 or fewer Digivolution cards. This stops things like a Gudomon swinging because it has no sources, stops things like Alliance for free, that we have to build up the stack a little bit to actually make use of it. Royal Knights can't swing. Digivolving gets around a lot of like really niche effects. It's a very, very strong card, and I think running it at anything less than 3 is a mistake. I used to be running it at 4, but because the deck list became so tight and I started valuing Mega Gargo a lot more, I ended up cutting it down to 3 rather than 4. Also, something to keep in mind is that it does have a weird interaction with the Edamon, where if you do play this and the Edamon off with the Zwart, and you get their effects both going in tandem, if you end up targeting a Digimon with 1 source with the Edamon, it doesn't matter if you get the start of mana phase, it has to attack, because it's not able to suspend with the Vikemon, and that can be a bit of a non-bow, so you have to keep that in mind when playing it. Finally, moving into the Mega Gargo Ace. This is by far the best proactive ace that you have, but it's also, I think, one of the better ones. It's still insanely good if you force your opponent to activate it on their turn. It has Blocker Reboot just on it raw, as well as when Digivolving, suspend 2 of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, then 2 of the Digimon or Tamers, can't unsuspend or Digivolve until the end of their turn, which also, I believe, includes Digivolution effects. So like if you proactively target a Magnet X on your turn, this effect will stay on them, so that way should they end up pitching a security effect, through effect or through hitting you, they actually cannot activate that Magnet X, giving it the immunity and the unsuspend. And then when Digivolving, end of attack, once per turn, this Digimon may unsuspend, so it's a double checker as well, which is really nice. This card is insanely good against decks like Dexter Doru, against Takamikazuchi. If they have a body on board, you can make them check with prior, against Magna X, even against other ace decks. If you proactively can keep turn for by Digivolving this for 4, it prevents them from actually being able to trigger any of their powerful aces, which I think is fantastic. Other non-archetypical level 6s I've played in the deck that I think have the most utility are things like Leviamon, just because it is a purple, that you can kind of just either Evo on top of your level 5s for 5 and get some good value out of it, because it threatens a lot and gains some memory, but also it has just the ability to just be hard played. Obviously, you do want to play this in some tandem with the Levia X as well, as a way to kind of get rid of certain decks that really want to deal with it, like Takamikazuchi, because if they play by effect with the Soul Lugar, you can immediately make use of the Levia X to punish them. As well as Valkyrie Ace, I think is very impactful. I used to play this at 2. It has the on play when Digivolving all of your opponent's Digimon, get minus 5k for the turn, then all turns when a card is removed from a security stack, delete one of your opponent's 8k or lower Digimon. If this effect didn't delete something though, it gains security attack +1 until the end of your turn. So it can be like a triple breaker. It allows you to play more niche cards like Omnimon, the Blitz variant, that can let you get in, assuming your opponent, say, check the security, this didn't delete anything, your turn, you swing in, you check a security, you don't delete anything. This is 3 checks into the Omnimon Blitz, which will then unsuspend and then swing in again for another 3 checks, which is really, really good in that sense. It's also really good at removing, I think, a wide board of small bodies, which this deck currently, I think, is probably the weakest thing it has going for it. Obviously, it's not teched into doing that right now because I don't think a lot of boards go into wide, weak bodies. Moving on to the level 7s in the list. There are quite a good chunk of them, so keep that in mind. It'll take a second to go over them. Got 4 Omnimon Zorts, got 2 Defeats, 2 Paladin Ace, and then 1 Apocalypse. Starting off with the most impactful of the level 7s, we have 4 Omnimon Zorts. It is a 15 play cost, 15k DP, 6 cost Evo from a black or purple level 6. When digivolving, trash top 3 cards of your deck. Then you may play up to 2 8 cost or less black or purple Digimon cards from your trash without paying the cost. Note this also includes all of our aces, so you can get their on-play effects going, as well as all of our level 5s. So it is the most value-oriented level 7 in the deck. Just getting off 2 of the Dark Masters support cards will allow us to search top 8 and add up to 4 cards from among them to our hand, which is the Evo itself, and then the 2 free bodies, and then plus 4 cards typically. So that's already net neutral, 2 free bodies, plus 4 there, and then the level 5 can then delete the Zort, making use of its body, so then place another level 6 in the back, setting up for another Zort next turn. Disgustingly good, disgustingly insane value. It also has a nice utility effect of when attacking by returning 1 level 6 card in the Digimon's devolution sources to your hand, delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a play cost of 12 or less. If you end up going on a Dark Masters, you can swing in, get that card back to your hand, so that way you can then immediately place it back in your raising, allowing you to kind of get like a lot of really good value going even there. And if you have an ace underneath it, even though you will overflow from it, you can then keep like a Bikemon or Mega Gargo in hand, should you be lacking some of that, to threaten your opponent again with that same powerful ace, should they swing into you. Zort Defeat has the security effect that places one from the without battle and without paying the memory cost, which can come up a couple times. It's a nice niche checker. It has the when digivolving effect that doesn't really matter too much in this deck a majority of the time, unless your opponent is on a powerful tamer deck like Imperial Dramon, or even against certain Takamikazuchis and Dex Dorugoromon decks, allowing you to delete their AGs. You could delete one of their opponent's tamers, which is an Evo for 3 from a purple or black level 6. 13k DP, and then it has the on-deletion effect of delete one of your opponent's Digimon. Now, assuming, like, say you got a Zord off and you have the guy in the back next turn, let's say your opponent, instead of removing a lot of your stuff, builds up a board because they're not very threatened by you killing them, which is typically fair. You can promote the Piedmon, swing in, get the pop on something, go into a Zord Defeat, passing turn for a little bit of memory, and then using the end of turn effects of the level 5s to immediately delete your Zord, popping something else while getting a level 6 back and raising, which is super nice. It's the most useful card in the Takamikazuchi matchup, which is sad, but also gives us some game against them. 2 Paladin modes. For those of you who don't know, Paladin is a 9 cost Evo from a blue or green Digimon for 6, 16k DP on play when digivolving. Trash all the Digivolution cards of all of your opponent's Digimon, then return all of the cards in your opponent's trash, in you or your opponent's trash to the bottom of the deck. If this effect returned any white level 7 cards, gain 3 memory, which typically, obviously we play a lot of white level 7s. All of our level 7s are white. We will be getting a 3 memory if we return ours. It's the best way of kind of in control matchups, making it so that way we have kind of this like endless conga line, getting Imperial in trash, then Imperialing the Imperial back, and then, you know, this will end up getting deleted, but you have that Imperial in deck to kind of keep up the loop. I think it's really important, and I wouldn't play any less than 2 just to kind of keep that loop alive. It also has the really strong when attacking effect by returning one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards to the bottom of the deck. Unsuspend this Digimon, which is not once per turn. So it's a wonderful way to kind of try and kill your opponent. Please note also that this has a really strong synergy with a card like Vikemon. If you end up getting Vikemon out and your opponent swings and then you Paladin mode, the remainder of their cards will actually not be able to suspend until they're able to get 2 sources underneath it. 2 or more at least, which is really, really strong. And then finally, Apocalypse. This card is useless in certain matchups and ends up being just a Vikemon for 3, which is hilarious in a lot of ways, because you would typically play it out for 3, pass turn for cheap, and then place a Vikemon underneath it during the end of turn. Make your opponent mill 8 cards, which can be disruptive, but isn't backbreaking by itself. For those of you who don't know what Apocalypse does, my apologies, I was talking about it as if you would know. It's a 15 cost, 15k DP, Evo on top of a black, green, blue, or purple, level 6 for 6. And then when this card would be played by placing up to 3 Dark Masters trait cards with different names from your battle area or trash under it, reduce the play cost by 4 for each one, up to a cost of 3 total. And then end of your turn by placing 1 level 6 or lower card from your trash. As this Digimon's bottom Digivolution card, activate one of that Digimon's on-play effects. Then this card, then you trash the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck for every level 6 in this card's sources. If you get this effect off twice against a majority of decks, that's typically game winning. So your opponent will almost assuredly try to remove it. So sometimes not even placing a valuable ace underneath, so that way your opponent gets that 4 memory back, and instead either placing a level 5 because you don't care too much about the mill, and instead you care more about like an Edamon effect or a Mame effect, or even like a rapid on-play effect as a way of keeping it on field guaranteed, is really good and can come up. Like Rapid is a pseudo Craniumon like you used to play in the old days, as long as you have Shoto, which is fantastic. Obviously it doesn't provide that extra mill, but you'll still be milling 6 cards, and then you're almost guaranteed to mill another 6 on the crackback, which is fantastic. And then in certain matchups it's super important because it is kind of just like a I win button. Where your opponent is now down to 8 cards in deck, and the moment they're down to 8 cards in deck, you have lethal with this card and 3 Dark Masters and any other level 6 in trash or battle area. Other level 7s that we've considered playing in the past are Quartz and Death X. Both of these are obviously searchable. Quartz, though, does not synergize very well with the Dark Masters. It can Evo on top of a green, white, or black level 6 for 6. And then it has a really strong Wind Digivolving effect, suspend all other Digimon and all Tamers, then every 2 suspended Digimon and Tamers gain 1 memory. Then it has the Alterns effect. Other than this Digimon, no Digimon or Tamers can unsuspend, so it's really good for stalling as well. And then finally, it has a wonderful when attacking effect. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, then for every 5 suspended Digimon or Tamers, trash your opponent's top security card, which will come up pretty consistently as a means of killing your opponent. The only problem is that the only aces that we can realistically go on, or there are only level 6s are aces that we can go on top of this with, and they're Mega Gargo, Vike, and Grand Kawaga. But I think having that as our only options, I think limits it a lot, as well as certain decks in the meta don't really care about this, and I think those are the decks that we're really trying to play around the most of. So we end up not playing our Quartz here. And then Death X, kind of similar to the Quartz. It's a very strong card, 20 play cost, 15k DP. You can Evo on top of it, black or purple for 6, which again, Vike, Quartz, Vike, Mega Gargo, and Grand Kawagamon, and Melga Ace are all targets for it. And it has the on play when Digivolving effect, the Digivolve 1 all of your opponent's Digimon, then delete all their level 4 or lower Digimon. When this card would be played, I can reduce the play cost by 3 for each of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. And then finally, end of your opponent's turn. Once per turn, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. Most opponents really aren't going wide or trying to stick a board per se that Death X Mon I think really interacts well with. So it also ended up not meeting the cut. Finally, onto the last 8 cards of our deck, Shoto Kazuma and 4 Analog Youths. Analog Youths are a really cheap turn 1 play, or any turn play really, that allows you to keep turn or even passing your opponent to 1. Feels fantastic. It's on play, reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 Digimon card among them to your hand, then trash the remaining cards. The trashing effect actually comes up a lot in this deck as well, because you're trying to put some amount of valuable cards in the trash, or maybe you're trying to look for certain Dark Masters and getting like a Metal Seedramon or Paidamon or Machinedramon that you can't really have the access to of like the extra turn getting it out. So instead, the Analog Youth getting it in trash comes up a good amount. Or even hitting a powerful level 5 like an Edamon that you need really badly but you can't really afford to play out, but you do have a Zort available to you. Trashing the Edamon from here and then getting a Zort effect off will typically be extremely impactful. It also has a really nice alternates effect. Whenever your level 5 or higher Digimon with the Digivolution Digivolution sources is deleted, you may suspend this tamer, and if you do, gain 1 memory, then hatch 1 Digi-Egg card in an empty space in your breeding area. And that comes up a lot in a lot of different ways. So first and foremost, if you get Zort and you play out, say, a Dark Masters or something else, be it another Dark Masters or otherwise, if you end up deleting that Zort, you can then gain some amount of memory back with the analog, making it an even cheaper high value play. But if you say promoted, got some like value off of a Zort, or maybe you didn't have a Zort and you just kind of like needed to get like a body out for like some kind of tempo, analog is a wonderful way of getting a mother in the back on your opponent's turn that then you can promote out and get some value out of using a Shoto or Dark Masters Digimon. So it's a great way to kind of keep getting that your eggs in cycle without having to sacrificing a lot of what your breeding area is to your Dark Masters. And then Shoto Kazuma is probably one of the most impactful cards in the list currently. Start your main phase, your opponent has a Digimon gain a memory, which is fantastic because of how much memory your opponent is given. They have a fairly easy time planning out their turn to give you 1 or 2 memory, which our first initial cutoff is 3 because of Shoto. So being able to have Shoto gain you memory to play out another Shoto is fantastic, because then you can make another more than 1 play in a single turn, which is great for this deck. Every extra play that you can make is fantastic. But if you have, say, 3 Shotos out and they put you to 3, that's 6 memory. You can get out 2 level 5s, or even just playing out a level 5 and then going into like a Zorts, or even just going into a Zorts and then keeping turn. All of these are extremely impactful plays that allow you to do some really niche things. As well as if you have 2 Shotos, you're always guaranteed at least 3 memory, which puts a Paladin lethal from the back with a Metal Seedramon. Makes it actually a useful ability, because you'll evo for 6 and then you'll gain back 3 memory from bottom decking your trash typically, and then you'll be able to start making a bunch of swings with that Paladin. But that's only the start of why Shoto is useful. That's like the cherry on top for what makes it good. The main reason you play this card is because of the end turn of effect. By suspending this tamer, one of your Digimon gains piercing and blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. If it has the Vortex Warrior trait in it, unsuspends. Which, that secondary effect doesn't matter. Giving your Mother to Reaper blocker protects you against so many different decks, like Paladin, like Dex, like Magna, but even giving things like Omnizort blocker makes it so that way it has like pseudo retaliation in a way if your opponent can't get over it. Giving your Zort blocker, your Zort will sometimes have reboot, so you can get a check in, get your Zort back out. There's so many different ways to give. There's so many different Digimon that you kind of want to have blocker that they're a little bit difficult to give through inheritables or just through effects, that Shoto really makes it very streamlined in that sense. Finally, the tamers that like we've considered playing. This tamer, you can also include the Izzy TK. They both have their own really unique uses, but we'll kind of go over those in a second. Starting with Digimon Emperor, obviously just trying to slow down those aggressive decks like Enga. I think it's kind of less utility after the Ukumon's been hit, so I ended up cutting it. It also has the draw effect of if one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon is deleted, you can spend this tamer to draw a card. If they ever swing in with like a rookie, it's pretty much like a guaranteed draw for you, but I just think it's impactful enough in the current meta to justify it. Mimi, Tachikawa, and Jokido. Start your turn if you have a suspended Digimon in play, gain a memory. Then if your opponent has a suspended Digimon in play, gain a memory. All turns when one of your green or blue Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle and it survives, you may suspend one of your this tamer to draw 1. Again, just getting more draw in as well as a little bit extra memory is really useful, but the main reason we'd be playing it is because of the fact it's green. It turns your Rapidmon on more frequently through the use of like Mamemon, as well as it gives an extra hit to Mamemon, which is a couple reasons why you would play it. The Izzy and TK one, I don't have a copy of it, so I wasn't actually able to, I think, justify playing it well enough or not, so it could be a little bit more useful than I'm giving it credit for. But it has the same start of your turn, except instead of suspended Digimon, it specifies level 5, which will almost always be available to you. So that one is more consistent in getting the memory. But it's all turns effects whenever, I believe it's one of your Digimon suspend, one of your green or yellow Digimon suspends, give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 1000 DP for the turn, which isn't very useful at all. But again, it's green for the rapid and because it's tamer for the Mame. Willis is really unique because it has the 3 cost on play. You may hatch 1 Digi-A card to an empty space in your breeding area. Then when one of your Digimon would Digivolve into a Digimon, Gargomon, or Rapidmon in its name, you may suspend this tamer to reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. And it actually has a very unique utility because of the fact that you can promote out a Dark Masters or a Mother and then immediately get this guy off of the Mame or just hard playing it for 3 and start setting up an extra Mother or extra card in the back with a lot of pretty strong utility there. It also has a very niche utility because, again, as I mentioned before, Mega Gargo is, I think, our most proactive ace that we're going to be wanting to get down on our turn. So being able to get that out for 1 memory cheaper comes up, and then obviously the main reason we're considering it is because it's green, so it turns on our Rapids. Otherwise, though, you could play a very similar card called, it's the 4 cost memory setter Mimi Tachikawa, which will, whenever you have I believe it's level 5 or higher green Digimon, you can suspend it to hatch or promote one of your Digimon. And that'll come up for getting out extra mothers or promoting a Dark Masters in raising, though that Dark Masters one is a little bit more niche. It requires you to have to kind of keep the Dark Masters in the back because one of your Digimon is taunted, but you're not going to be passing turn because the Digimon that's taunted and none of the Digimon on field are aces, but you have a Rapid / other, I think Rapids are only green Digimon that would potentially survive in that scenario, that would then allow you to spend the Mime, and then promote the Dark Masters. But that's a very niche thing that probably won't ever happen, and I just I couldn't justify the Willis as I don't think it was good enough, and I didn't have any Mimes, and I still don't think the Mimi would be good enough because there's only 3 options, I guess, that can really make use of it, which is the Grand Kuwagamon, the Mega Gargo Ace, and the Rapid, and that didn't feel powerful enough, even with it being a memory setter. And then finally, Genai. 3 cost on play, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Add 1 level 3 Digimon card and 1 non-white Tamer card among them to your hand, and then return the rest to the bottom of your deck. And then return the rest to the bottom of your deck. And then in your opponent's turn, when an opponent's level 5 or higher Digimon attacks, by suspending this Tamer, move 1 of your Digimon to the breeding area to the battle area. Now, I understand what you're thinking, like, why are we doing this? It doesn't work with Mother D Reaper at all as a way to kind of like pushing up more guys. It doesn't work against a lot of decks because they're either swinging with a level 4 lower and then digivolving into a level 6, so it wouldn't proc like Anga, or even if they do swing with an Agudamon, your Genai will get deleted before it can go off. It is quite literally only here for one specific matchup, being the Takami Kazuchi matchup, which is, again, the one that I lost to the most. I ended up not playing any copies of this because I figured, hey, it's not going to be useful enough in a majority of our matchups, but it is an extra answer for the Takami Kazuchi matchup. And the reason it's an answer is because the current only way that we can try and survive a Takami Kazuchi is having Mother D Reapers and Shoto, which only slows them down for a turn, and then if they end up getting the whole line back up on the crackback, even after we remove their stuff, they will still be able to kill us because our mothers will be very depleted very quickly. Or a Zwart Defeat, which requires like a really unique setup of either just the Zwart Defeat by itself, or Zwart Defeat and with blocker and something else with blocker as a way of protecting it, making sure that it can die to the Takami Kazuchi. This provides a secondary answer, which is specifically Paladin mode and our Dark Masters Seadramon. And the way that this would end up working is essentially have a Metal Seadramon in the back and kind of just keep it there, and then just try and play a weird niche value game of just like hard dropping a bunch of level 5s and trying to play on board while relegating this Metal Seadramon to our breeding area and making sure that it just kind of stays there. And then once your opponent swings in with Takami Kazuchi, they will attempt to alliance, assumingly, and then strip a card from their security to trash top card of yours. You'll spend the Genai, promote the Metal Seadramon, and then because it's still in the when attacking phase, we then move from the when attacking to the ace phase. You'll be able to blast into the Paladin mode. Typically, you'll be bottom decking your trash, but there's also utility in bottom decking theirs to prevent them from doing a lot of stuff. Strip them all their sources as well, and then you have a couple of different ways you can kind of interact. Because your opponent will typically leave you at 2 memory when they're doing this combo. Of course, depending on what your board looks like, they may actually have more memory than that, or less. just unknown, or if your opponent's trying to play around the Genai, they may not even be playing into this, but this is kind of like a way of preventing that. You'll typically gain 3 memory, putting yourself to 5. You can choose to block, which will let you Take crash, giving your opponent back to 0, and then these will die. As well as they'll no longer have the Take, they'll just have the singular body on field, which they typically won't be able to make use of, but you can be punished by, let's say they put the Darugamon, they played that out, they're now at 0, they Evo for 3 into Soul Pitch, Skull Belucci, after being able to set an extra AG underneath it. Pitch Skull Belucci, Evo for 3 using the Skull Belucci into Fenrir. Fenrir, because you have the AG, plays out the Kazuchi for free, and then they go back and Takemi Kazuchi, putting them back to 2, which is something you have to play around. Whereas if you choose not to block, they'll do 2 checks, and if it doesn't die in those 2 checks, which will be total 3 because of the trash, you'll be at 2 security left, and then you can kind of swing in, bomb deck the Takemi Kazuchi, and bomb deck the other card to get an extra 2 checks in, and then do a 3rd check there. And I think that you're stuck in a weird way in this matchup of trying to either deck them out using Apocalypse or choosing to kill them, which can unlock certain cards in their security for them. Both of which a little scary, which is why I ended up just not choosing to run the Genai and instead saying, hey, we're just not going to run into any Takemi Kazuchis. And unfortunately, we ran into 2, which ended up being our only 2 losses. Oof. That's the overview of the deck. We're now going to go ahead and go into the overview of matchups, our counterplay, as well as the matchups counterplay to us in the way that they can kind of try and interact and play around what we're trying to do. So if you're interested in that, please stick around. We're about to go into that just now. But otherwise, if you are interested in that and you just wanted to see the deck list and kind of the thoughts going into it, thank you so much. Please leave a like and subscribe. Hey gang, what's up? So, I took a quick break, got like a little drink, relaxed. Now we're moving into the matchups. So welcome to the Dark Masters Primer, about getting good at the deck. So starting off, here's the deck list, deck building, everything like that. You can kind of just skip to here if you just want to see the raw deck list. Keep in mind, though, that this deck list is built specifically for a very specific meta. So these cards, this entire deck is subject to change at any given point, depending on what you're trying to beat. That's the kind of deck that we're playing. It is not static. Maybe there's no use for Shoto, which is probably going to be difficult, mind you, but maybe the decks that we're trying to beat do not care about a 15k unaffected blocker. Maybe they're killing you through milling or something, which, some purple hybrids going into the future will be doing. Maybe we're trying to beat a combo deck like Takemi Kazuchi, which maybe we'll be playing 2 or 3 Genais and more Metal Seadras and trying to just stick on that and forcing them to play a very unique cat and mouse game there. This is just the deck list that I ended up getting 18th place at the most recent Ultimate Cup, just in mind as well. I was so close to 15th. All right, I was just a couple of points to top 16. I was just a couple points off. I really wanted to get this deck into the pie chart, but getting top 18 I think is still completely fine with the list. I think it proves that it could top and be really good. Of course, I think, personally, I'll be a little bit, not humble, vain. I'll be a little vain. I think I'm probably one of the best Dark Masters players in the world just because of how much time and effort I've put into the deck, as well as my current understanding of the way the deck functions. At least I think that I'm the best in the way that I've decided to construct in the way that I understand the deck. So, I personally think my words make a lot of sense, but if you disagree, please leave a comment and tell me why you think I'm wrong in the YouTube. Anyways, let's talk about the counterplay as well as the counterplay, which we'll call just CC play going forward. So first off, with Imperial, our counterplay includes we have effective ways around their partition because of our DDigivolve effects. Being able to just DDigivolve a Pyildramon and then getting that partition off by deleting the level 3 underneath it. Let's say we do, the best example is Edamon targeting a Pyildramon, therefore to swing in. They swing in, we activate the Ace to go into the Vicmon, Digivolve it twice, which will typically end up with a Beamon or a Wormmon, which will then immediately die to the Edamon minus 3k, effectively removing their body and getting around partition, which is good. We can also prevent them from digivolving with Primo and Dragon mode using Gargo Ace, which is true. If you Gargo Ace on your turn preemptively and then get off the Edamon in some way, or Edamon and then Gargo Ace on top of that Edamon, it forces them to swing in with a minus 3k DP guy, and then even though they would be deleted or removed from play by battle, their Primo can't activate because they can't Digivolve because of the Gargo effect, as well as the Dragon Mode can't evolve with the aces because of the Gargo effect going there. Keep in mind though, if you do Edamon something and then you Gargo suspend it and then make it can't unsuspend, it will not be able to swing. Keep that in mind. However, you can still make it unable to unsuspend and make it unable to Digivolve while leaving it unsuspended, because you can suspend 2 other things rather than that card. So keep that in mind. Shoto makes it so that way their aggression just can't happen. Their Pyodramons can never comfortably swing in. Neither can their Imperial Dramon Dragon modes or their Imperial Dramon Fighter modes, because of our 15k unaffected body that can't be suspended, and it's a blocker. So once you get that out, the matchup becomes a lot more breathable, though it's not horrible even without the Shoto. I think it just goes from like a 70-60% win rate without Shoto to like almost like 100% win rate when you get the Shoto out. Rapid stops them from being able to use Primo or Dragon if we have the Shoto out as well. And the reason I say that in particular is because even if they Dragon mode or Paladin with the Dragon or the Primo, it doesn't matter because they can't bottom deck the card that we Digivolved using the Rapid effect, because the Rapid is that whole Digimon is now immune to being bottom decked or bounced to hand. So even if they suspend it and then attempt to like bottom deck it, it doesn't matter. You're still guaranteed to get that powerful ace effect off. And if they did go into like fighter mode to attempt to remove it, or paladin to attempt to remove it, you are then digivolving them twice, or suspending them and preventing them from unsuspending or digivolving using some of the powerful aces that we have available to us, or even paladin moding to steal some memory from them and setting up a really strong turn there. I would also like to mention that we have a lot of tamer removal, being the Grand Kuwaga and the Defeat, which I didn't put here, but those are great ways to remove their valuable Kenan Davis. The counter play, or the CC play, is the ability to... Someone just joined, give me a second. Sorry about that, guys. Friends hopped into Discord. The counter play is, first off for this deck, understanding that your opponent uses a lot of aces. And you can take advantage of that by gaining huge memory pluses, because typically if they go like into like a Zwart, they will have that ace underneath, and you can just immediately strip that using the powerful tamer like Kenan Davis, and immediately gaining an extra 4 memory. A great way you can kind of like actually really punish your opponent as well is using Paladin mode proactively into a board full of their aces that can just start stripping their stuff and stripping their bodies really, really effectively. There are ways they can kind of play around it, as mentioned before, like rapid and stuff, but if they have like a level 5 and then like 3 aces, if you just proactively go into Paladin mode, swing into security, usually bottom decking their trash because you'll gain an extra 3 memory from that, and then you swing, you bottom deck to level 5 first to try and prevent them from getting any like huge effects going. The most they can do is Paladin mode you in response, but their stuff will probably be suspended from your Pyodramon. And if they do Paladin mode, they have no way to gain the extra 3 memory back unless you have a Paladin mode in your trash as well. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. Bottom decking is devastating in the matchup just because of the fact that you're preventing them from getting their level 5s in trash. So being able to prevent them from getting a strong Zwart, I think is pretty impactful. And then Dragon mode really makes things awkward because a lot of the ways that this deck really wants to interact with your opponent after they've established a board is by setting up a powerful ace play. But if you have a Dragon mode out, you can kind of just ignore that, as long as they don't have Shoto, obviously. So you can just start using Dragon mode as your primary checker comparatively to, you know, using Pyodramon and playing directly into aces. And as mentioned, yeah, Paladin is game winning a lot of the time if you can just like stick it. Moving on to Demon Lords. So Demon Lords, the counterplay that we have against this deck is actually quite a lot, and it requires a pretty, I think, in-depth understanding of what Demon Lords wants to do. But Vikemon prevents them from using the gate. So for those of you who don't know what the gate does, It's here on the screen, so I'll just give it a quick read. Breeding, so your main phase puts the top card of your Digi-Egg deck as Digimon's bottom Digivolution card and delete all of your opponent's delete all of your Digimon, my bad. If this effect deleted, place 1/7 Great Demon Lord's trait card from your trash as Digimon's bottom Digivolution card. And then breeding, end of your opponent's turn by deleting this Digimon with 7 or more Digivolution sources. With different names, you may play one Agudamon from your trash without paying the cost. So it's just Royal Knights, obviously. But the issue with that is that they typically would play out the Agudamon at the end of your turn, and then they would swing with it, killing you by placing 7 sources underneath the Agudamon and then stripping them to delete 7 things and trash the top 7 cards of your security. Really, really strong effect. Vikemon immediately turns that off, however, because it prevents them from attacking with the Agudamon. The Agudamon comes in with no sources, and then when it's a one attacking effect, when Digivolving effect is placing the sources underneath it. So it actually won't be able to suspend for that one attacking effect, preventing them from being able to use it. And if they end with the Agudamon on field, they also get rid of the gate in their breeding area, preventing them from being able to do it next turn, as well as getting rid of all of the free memory they've been getting from the gate's play cost reduction. So it essentially says your opponent can misplay, but they can't kill you unless they have some different form of setup. Paladins can also rip Agudamons from trash, so it only plays Agudamons from the trash. So if you have no way of actually playing out a Vikemon, or your opponent has a guaranteed Agudamon because they have a level 6 on field that you couldn't get rid of, that will stick to your turn, and they're able to get an extra source underneath it, so that way they can actually swing. It makes things a little bit more difficult. So you can actually trash the bottom deck their trash to make it so that way they also don't have up to 7 demons to place underneath the Agudo. Now that one's a bit more niche. The main reason you would ever do it is to prevent them from activating the gate with no way of actually using Vikemon to prevent them from swinging with said Agudamon. We also don't have to check security in this matchup whatsoever, because the way that a lot of purple decks play is in those matchups, you very rarely actually have to check security. You can kind of just let them run out of gas or threaten to block them on lethal. So at any point, should your opponent kind of just be playing the game, I think it's actually a misplay to check into the security, because you can hit a lot of really bad cards for yourself in the matchup, be it extra Creepymons or Lucamons that they really can. They've been like looking for, they want to like rip from the trash and either place underneath their gates to get like the extra names or to play from said trash, or even hitting it like Gudamon can be absolutely devastating. So I typically just let them chill. And even when it comes to Lucamon, I don't delete anything on my side of the board and I let them recover, because I'm so rarely hitting them that essentially it's just place top card of your deck and put in the trash forever, and that could be a valuable card that they care about in this matchup. Shoto always buys an extra turn because of the way it interacts. Obviously, Melody Reaper is immune, and because it's a blocker on your opponent's turn, it will just provide us the extra turn, even if their Agudo does end up going off, because they can trash all of our security. They need, for every Shoto that we have on field to turn the Agudo, they need an extra check, basically. So they need the Agudamon check to block 1, and then an extra one to go to kill us, actually. But if we have 2, they need an extra check to do that. And that every check beyond the Agudo becomes a lot more difficult to do. Defeat stops them from killing us. Essentially, if we've got Zord defeat on field right now, if they do swing with the Agudamon, it will get deleted, and then we can delete the Agudamon in tandem as a response. And then APOC is obviously inevitability. Even if you mill APOC or it's in security, at a certain point in the game, you can just paladin mode your security back, place the APOC on top, and then just kind of get to it within the next 2 to 3 turns because of how low your deck will be by that time. And your opponent is always dead from 8 or less cards the moment they play it. And even if they aren't, even if they have 10 cards, sometimes just playing out an APOC essentially puts them on a 2-turn timer. And that's also really nice. The counter play is that you guys have really efficient removal. Being able to consistently remove aces every single turn as a way of gaining that a little bit extra memory and being able to stick a couple extra bodies feels pretty good. The downsides obviously include like not being able to, I think, effectively keep up a value engine is a little bit more difficult. You do kind of watch out for your hand size because our deck is so efficient. Because the deck you're going against, the Dark Masters, is so efficient at keeping cards in hand and at searching. If you are just typically going 1-for-1, it feels a little bad. That's why I think that some of the better cards in the matchup for you guys are like your level 3 Lucamon, the yellow one that searches. Because even though it's getting you closer to that Apocalypse inevitability, you're at least setting up, I think, really early on a pretty robust hand size that allows you to deal with what your opponent is going to be wanting to doing. Because you're going to just need a conga line of assholes basically to just keep the pressure on your Demon Lord, into your Dark Master's opponent. Sleep mode with the new Belphimon guarantees an Agudo effect. So essentially, if you go sleep mode, you place the new Belphimon underneath it. At the end of your opponent's turn, you can crack your gates, preventing your Belphimon from getting deleted without playing out an Agudo from trash. You can, obviously, you don't have to though. And then you Digivolve for 6 into an Agudo on your turn. Getting the when Digivolving effect triggered, you'll then be able to play around Vikemon and everything, and because you were immune, I also couldn't do anything to the body itself, so you'll be able to essentially guarantee getting the Agudomon effect off. Moving on to deck Doru. The counterplay we have for this deck is that Edamon obviously forces a taunt. It's really nice to leave an opponent's Digimon on field and then just say, hey, on your turn, you're going to have to kind of interact with us, which can allow us to either like de-digivolve them or go into Mega Gargo, which I think Mega Gargo is probably the most impactful card in this matchup, and I'll kind of explain why here. It stops them from evoing from trash as protection, so they can't go into like any of their dex cards whatsoever, even though they would be deleted, which I think is super, super good. Also, Vikemon makes them play weird in order to trigger their alliance, because even if they do play off of the Dex or the Doragora, after deleting something of ours, they have to then Digivolve twice, or by placing an extra tamer underneath it and then Digivolving once, in order to be able to use that card for the alliance checks to get that larger DP and extra check-in, which I think makes it a bit weirder for them to more consistently get that off. Also, because of how fast they dig in their deck, you can usually get to like an APOC lethal by like turn 5 or 6, which feels really good. I think the biggest problem with that is just that you have to weather so much when it comes to Dex Doru. So if your opponent is, I think, really competent in managing their resources and stuff, even if they are giving you like a turn 5 or 6 lethal with APOC, their goal is obviously to kill you on turn 4. So I think it's where things get a little bit more tricky for you. I think most of the time whenever I lose against this deck, I'm quite literally killing them on the crackback if they give me the time with the Apocalypse, but obviously they're beating me the turn prior, so it doesn't matter. Rabbit can't be deleted its first turn, so it'll protect your board from the Dex Doru. So for those who don't know, Dex Doru essentially just Digivolve 3 one of your opponent's Digimon, then you, if you have the Doragoromon in its sources, you delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level, which is really good against this deck, because something you would typically do is go Doragora, proc the, and then go into the Dex. De-Digivolve probably like a Zort. It would have popped a level 5 to kind of clear that up, and then delete all of your level 6s, which will typically be the bulk of where you're at, which will usually be like 1 to like 3 aces as well, gaining a huge chunk of memory. But if they try to do that play while you have the Rapid out for its first turn, they actually can't get it off because it will attempt to delete the Rapid itself, and that will kind of insulate the remainder of your board from that board wipe, which is really good. Also, something I didn't really mention, Paladin can come up in this matchup, interestingly enough, but it becomes a bit more weird because of how good your opponent is wiping the board. I think the only time the Paladin really matters is actually when you have a Rapid. Prior to that, though, you can kind of just like hard play it to like get rid of some of their Dex cards, but it doesn't usually hurt them too badly. The counterplay is the fact that you guys can actually taunt aces. It's really good for kind of losing your stuff to an Edamon, and then in the immediate crackback, just going a Lugamon for 3, placing an AG underneath, and Digivolving into a the level 4 that taunts. immediately passing back turn, you guys can kind of try and steal turn from us by deleting that ace and putting us at less than 3 memory, which hurts an obscene amount. It's actually one of the most devastating things that can happen to the Dark Masters deck, is someone deleting our ace at the start of our turn and stealing turn back from us. The fact that you guys have so much Chamber Recursion as well, using the Lucamons, makes it really difficult for us to interact with them in any meaningful capacity as well. Yeah, the Digivolve and Board Wipes, I think, are, obviously they're really strong for us to make use of when we're going against other decks, so it would make sense that in return they're really strong against us. So the fact that you guys are able to, I think, so effectively board wipe a huge amount of aces at any given point, gaining such a huge chunk of memory, and because of how memory efficient your deck is, I think if you're ever given that opportunity, you can make huge swing turns that, even if we're given an opportunity on the crackback to try and interact with, it usually becomes just kind of like Apocalypse or bust. Also, protection from battle, I think, is really impactful. Because of how strong our security is and just how big our bodies are typically, the fact that you guys are able to intentionally kind of die in battle and then get huge pluses off of that, I think is kind of really fucking strong. And I think that's what makes your deck pretty strong, at least attack us from a more unique angle, because a lot of the time whenever we are battling, we're either hard losing to like 22k DP bodies and it doesn't matter whatsoever, or we are just so big that it becomes a thing that the opponent has to play around. So the fact that you guys are able to take that typical strength of ours and actually use it against us to almost always get a guaranteed Evo from trash whenever you want is, I think, really, really good for you. And then obviously just speed. I think if your deck is able to go on like your turn 2 or your turn 3 and kill, I think that is a huge plus against Dark Masters deck, because obviously every turn that this game goes on, the better it is for the Dark Masters deck typically. Something you have to kind of keep in mind is you have to really manage your deck size. So even if you can kind of make those huge swing turns, if it's going to put you on like 2 cards in deck and you're not going to be able to kill us, don't do it. Just because at any point, if we have an Apocalypse in hand, we will just immediately kill you from 8 cards or less. 8 cards or less is always the little magnifier you have to watch. You have to watch out for your deck size in this matchup if you aren't killing your opponent that turn. Anyways, on to Takamikazuchi. So this is probably the current hardest matchup for us with the deck list I have posted. There are a couple things that we can kind of do to interact differently, as I mentioned with the Genai. But just speaking purely with this deck list that I've shown, here's the counterplay available to us. So first things first, Shotokan buy you a turn. It buys you, I think, the least amount of time of any of the decks that you go against. Because we don't play any of like the ties that give plus 1000 DP, our Shotos are never able to make our Mother D Reapers bigger than the 17k DP Takamikazuchi. That's another thing you can kind of add to this matchup if you want. It also provides a little bit of draw, as well as being a memory setter. I just don't know how useful it is in the majority of matchups, because 15k usually is good enough. 16k DP obviously is really good into other matchups like Magnamon, or yeah, typically Magna X is another like really good matchup for it to be in, because getting 2 of those off is pretty solid. And if you have 2 ties, if your opponent ever swings in with the Takamikazuchi, you will almost always still turn from them if they set it to 2. So that's another thing. I could definitely add ties in. I just don't know if it's worth it. So counterplay, defeat prevents them from doing the combo if it's the only thing on board, or if you have 2 blockers. So if it's the only thing on board, if they try to do the full combo, they have to give minus 16,000 DP to specifically the Zort defeat, which will then delete it, and then you can immediately delete your opponent's Digimon, usually the Fenrir, and then that will typically make them pass turn. So that's something you can kind of just sit on. Like a little play that you can do is go set up your whole like loop, place a Piedmon in the back, promote the Piedmon, Digivolve it into the Zort defeat. If you don't pass turn, cool, you can get like a check-in, and if you do pass turn, that's all right too. But assuming you don't pass turn, you get a check in, and from this point onwards, you don't want any Mother Shotos out there whatsoever. You never put on a Mother Shoto if you're gonna go with the Zort as your way of like keeping yourself safe, and you're just gonna keep checking with the Zort defeat. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna check in with the Zort defeat, and you're going to keep promoting your machines and your pides just in case that Zort defeat ever dies in security to like a Takamikazuchi, or I think that's the only thing in their deck that they would play that's bigger than the Zort defeat. So if you ever check that in security, you can then immediately turn that machine or Piedmon into another Zort defeat, so that way you can keep your safety net up. The reason that you need 2 Shotos to give like blocker to the Zort defeat and to like say the Mother D Reaper available to you, the reason you need that is because of the fact that if your opponent swings in with the Darugamon, it gives a collision, and your opponent can force one of your Digimon to block. So if your Mother D Reaper doesn't have blocker while it's out, they can actually force your your Zort defeat to block using the collision effect, protect with the level 4 from trash using the Dex Evo, and then go into a Fenrir effect. Instead of targeting the Zort that's suspended, they target the Mother D Reaper. Even though nothing happens, they prevent the deletion of the Zort defeat, and then they just go for lethal from there. So you always need a way to kind of protect your blocker Zort if you have an extra body on field. They also mill a lot, so APOC can like just steal games from them. Again, 8 cards is like the threshold, and the moment they hit that, you're just guaranteed lethal if you have APOC and 3 Dark Masters on field or in trash. Vikes also stops them from getting some easy alliance checks, so they like swing in with the Takamikazuchi. If you have played Vikemon at some point during your prior turn, they can't get the easy Evo off the Soul Lugar. They have to go further into that stack to actually get something, and that means that the easiest way for them to do it would be having another Aju to place underneath, and then going into a level 4 if they played out Aluga, or level 5 if they played out one of the level 4s. Our 6k bodies also, if we just leave them on field, prevent them from playing out cheap with the Soul Lugar effect, which can be nice because it prevents them from getting that extra check-in, leaving you at, I think, 1 security. And the counterplay, like you guys I think are inherently really strong against us if we aren't playing any of the tech cards that I think deliberately really hurt you, like the Ties or Genais, or more of the Zort defeats. I think raw deck to deck, I think you guys are probably just going to be consistently beating us just because it's a combo deck versus a control deck. If you're able to force the defeat to block at any point, I think that's really good for you, because that's our unironically only way, in at least this current list, to deal with you and stop your Takamikazuchi from killing us. Attempting to delete Mother rather than the bodies that your opponent wants to die. So like making sure that you understand you can target the Mother D Reaper with your deletion effects, so that way you don't have to target anything else that you don't want to, because you can also mess up your combo by getting rid of one of our aces and then not having an efficient way to put your opponent to 1 or 2 memory and not being able to get that extra check-in with the Takamikazuchi, which is really important to do. And then, also something you can do is, instead of activating the level 6 Fenrir effect, if they have like Mephistomon out, and it's the only one you can delete, you can DNA first, and then the Fenrir is no longer on field, so it won't be able to resolve. So they can't use the Mephistomon either with the Fenrir effect. And then Takamika can't be taunted by 1 level 5. So they can't just Edamon you from a raw board onto your Takamikazuchi, because if you swing with the Takamikazuchi, your 1 attacking effect will trigger, which will allow you to trash security, which will then allow you to use the Kazuchimon Inheritable to give minus 8,000 DP to something, which will kill the Edamon if that's what they played. So you're pretty insulated from that. So to keep that in mind, that you don't need to leave an extra level 4 up if you aren't sure you can kill your opponent. You don't need to leave that extra body around, because that actually then provides us with a way of potentially outing your Fenrir without putting in too much work for it. And then play around Paladin mode. Make sure you keep copies of Takamikazuchi and Kazuchimon and Fenrir in hand, like just the pieces you need, because you don't want all your Takamikazuchi to be in trash and then you get Paladin moded and they're all their bottom 3, and then from that point in the game you're essentially auto losing. Honor Shuttle Mother. Counterplay. Just play normal. There's nothing, you win. It's such a hard matchup to lose. It's crazy. It requires you to mill or have insecurity both of your Paladin modes to get at least give your opponent a chance to lose. And even then, you just need to kind of be careful. You just gotta be a little careful in that matchup if you mill or have both paladins in security, because the paladins allow you to recycle your deck, and they'll be able to recycle theirs. So it's just gonna go on for a little bit. So you just kind of have to understand that we're going to eventually outvalue our opponent and aren't going to be able to get like an insane loop going at a faster and more reasonable pace than our opponent will be able to, even though they'll have more memory than us consistently. And then like the main way that they can actually steal a game from us is like a quartz lethal if you don't end up getting a Mother D Reaper blocker. So keep that in mind as well. Like you just need to keep Mother D Reaper as an available blocker, usually 2 Mother D Reapers as blocker, and that will really protect you from getting quartzed into quartz for lethal, which I think they play at most 2 typically. But yeah, quartz is the only way that we can lose. And then don't mill both paladins. Yeah, our level 5s and Zort let us go like +6. So we're always going to be up on card advantage. So they're going to be trading 1 for 1, and we're going to be trading 1 for 1. But we have searchers that give us like +5 with the Zort, because we can just get 2 of the Dark Masters out, and there's not much they can do in this matchup. And we don't have to kill them like in a traditional way, getting over their Mother D Reapers. Obviously we can with like a Paladin mode, but we don't have to. So we can just kind of chill, relax, have a good time. The counterplay is lol. Your only hope is they brick and mill both Paladin modes or don't play around the quartz, and that's it. I'm sorry, it feels really bad to say to Shadow Mother player, but like it's such a hard matchup for you because our control variant is more so about gaining those huge tempo plays and those huge values comparatively to like the more passive gameplay. Mind you, I think they have better matchups into decks like Takamikazuchi compared to us because of that. Because obviously, you know, they're able to play the ties and play like the slower, gain huge amounts of memory game plan. But Magna X counterplay, we have to kill them in this matchup. So keep that in mind when playing, but make sure you don't rush. So what I mean by don't rush is I make sure that you understand that their security or they're going to have a huge blocker, and so you kind of like continuously get that chip in over the course of like 10 turns to kill them, because they're not going to be adding a lot of cards to hand. They're not going to be drawing a huge amount. So you're not really going to be able to rely on Apocalypse as a lethal play, but you can rely on Apocalypse as getting like a 15k body blocker that then gets like a really strong on-play effect from one of your aces or one of your Dark Masters. And then can mill like 8 cards, which can sometimes hit a couple of Magna X's, which will prevent them from having those cards at hand. When we're swinging security, we really have to play around the Heimerspark, around the Ice Wall, around Heaven's Judgment, and then most importantly around the Structure Deck Magna. Because of how many aces we have on field, your opponent will be able to steal a lot of memory from you, even with just a D-Digivolve. That's not even to say if they hit the Structure Deck Magna while they have a VMon in play. Like we're in a rough spot if that happens. They're gonna get like 8 memory from us and steal turn for sure. So you need to kind of keep that in mind. Shoto really buys his time in this matchup. The only body they have that can get over Magnemon Ra is the Egg and the Magna X, or the red-blue VMon in the Magna X. Everything else is just too small to get over the Mother D Reaper, so we can kind of just chill on that and allow the Magna X to be the thing that we just have to really deal with. That's obviously unless they're playing like Shu Yulin as well, which gives them Alliance, which then they can get over. No, it's still in the Magna X because it has to have X antibody in it. So D-Digi and Edamon are kings. Being able to just eat Edamon, the Magna X, they swing, you blast into Valk Ace, D-Digivolve it twice, and then the rookie dies as well because it's got -3k. Really good, really good. Rapid guarantees the body on field with Shoto, which means they can't just raw swing with the Magna X and they just hit the protection. Because of the fact that we have to continuously play around Zudo Ace and Structure Deck Magna as much as you can. Like if your opponent opens like enough VMon bodies and Structure Deck Magnas in hand, it becomes like one of the hardest matchups for us to deal with if we don't find like an early Shoto Rapid. Yep, as I said before, play around as much as you can. They also probably play Death X, but we still will be going wide just because of how immune to Death X our board is. They'll probably just Digivolve like a Zort or like an Ace or 2, and we won't mind too much because we never play any level 4s that will be deleted by Death X. And the Mega Gargo can stop them from using the Magna X effect. So it's the proactive play that you can do, where if you have a level 6 in play, you can go straight into the Mega Gargo for 4, targeting the Magna X. It won't suspend it, but it'll prevent it from acting its when Digivolution effects and unsuspending. So it'll get like a check in, but it won't get like the protections and stuff that your opponent could typically go for it. And then the counter play. Finding structure deck Magnas and Heaven Judgments are like game determinative for you. If you're able to find like some amount of ST Magnas and the Judgments, you're probably going to have a much more favorable game than if you don't. Magna X is only safe your first turn. So what I mean by that is the turn you get it out is the only turn that it's guaranteed to be around. So you have to try and get as much value out of it as it can. So like double checking, maybe even getting like the one cost red option that lets you check twice. So you're getting 4 checks in. Like you really have to be aggro in this matchup, I feel. Play around Mega Gargo as much as you can. Even if they don't target the Magna X with it, because they can remove it in some other way. Stopping your VMons from being able to Digivolve, so that way you can't get your like unsuspend Magna to swing in for a game is truly, truly devastating. Vike will stop your chip, but don't forget its effect and put yourself in a bad position. So Vikemon can really fuck with the VMons you have out in play, because if you just go straight into a Magna, you then have to go into a level 5 in order to swing. So you have to try and find some way to get the extra bodies underneath, even if that means Digivolving twice into the Magna X to actually be able to swing. So you have to kind of pay attention to when your opponent has a Vikemon and when they haven't. And then you have to play very aggro, as said, but make sure that the moment they have like the level 5s on field, you should never play aggro at the cost of giving them a free ace, because that will usually cost you the game more than if you played a bit more passively. On to Yellow Vaccine, the counterplay. Nearomon is scary, so don't forget it. Nearomon is the when attacking, trash the top card of your security to gain a memory egg. It's the way that they kind of play around Edamon, because if you Edamon your opponent, they can swing with the Magna X and immediately proc its restand and protection, making it so that way you can't ace in response, and they'll become 15k DP. They have a second stack without Niaro. Always taunt that one, because then you can affect the Magna X and also deal with that stack without rather than having to accept your opponent is going to get the restand immediately. Their level 5 aces can eat your level 5s for 4 memory, so keep that in mind. They can also, depending what they're playing, they can maybe even just play that out for 4 and then go into a strong level 6, immediately causing some issues for you with your own aces. But those level 5s are actually a boon in disguise because of how easy it is for us to eat them. You can play out Vikemon for like 4 and completely like destroy a stack in a way, because of how useful it is. If you can pop the 3-cost DK, obviously it's a really good card to just get rid of, because it will give them at least 1 memory every single turn, which is really strong. Shadow does slow them down because they have to have the Shu Yulin in order to give Alliance, because you will be 15k and their Magna X will be 15k. Seedramon and Paladin is the best way to stop their Magna, because of the fact that they're not playing the DP buffs like the blue bases. You're going to be able to kind of just stick out a Metal Seedramon, and if they ever swing with it, you can immediately go into Paladin mode. Yes, you won't be able to affect it, but you can still 3 memory, and then you can block them with a 16k body, forcing them to Armor Purge. And then if they aren't running the Niaromon egg, it's actually just a free matchup, because it's a worse. They don't play the cards that are really good against you in the blue base Magna list, while still having all the same weaknesses that Magna X has against you. The only benefit that they have is they are more memory efficient than the blue base, but we don't care about how memory efficient they are because we're going to be trading up with them anyways. And the counter play is never build a second stack without an Aromon. Never just like hard play like a Digimon out that has more than 3k DP, because the Edamon will crush your current stack, and that's the only thing you ever really have going for you. Shu Yulin is super important in this matchup because you really need to find Alliance as a way to get past the thick Mother D Reaper bodies. Make sure you also understand that if you ever get a level 5 ace out, even if it's underneath the Magna X, it's always liable to be lost at any point. So you have to kind of try and play around that if you can. And then if you don't run Niaro, Ripozo. Onto the Ancient Garurumon matchup. So the counterplay is that Mega Gargo kind of goes fucking crazy. Targeting the rookies, preventing them from swinging is nice for slowing down aggression. But even just but I think the main reason it's so good is because you can target the tamers themselves and stop them from unsuspending, or even just digivolving raw, which is super good. Vikemon actually prevents them from swinging with most bodies and affects their hybrid things as well. So their rookies will never really be able to swing if they're on red base, so that the digivolve if they're using blue base, but they're not. Their rookies are kind of just stunned for the turn. And if they go into the Kendo Garurumon off the Koji, they can't actually do the swing with it they'll have to do the Evo for 1 into, not into Kendo, it's the Lobo. No, it is the Kendo. So yeah, Evo for into Kendo for 2, and then they can't swing because they can't suspend a Digimon with more or less Source, and this one only has a Tamer. So they Digivolve for 1, and then Digivolve for 3 into Ancient Garurumon. Which can then, if they end up bouncing your Vikemon, that's like a net, it's a memory neutral play, which isn't horrible, and they can swing obviously because they'll have the sources underneath to actually be able to suspend. But there's not, I think, that's what I'm looking for. There's not a better way for them to do it if you have a level 5 in play and then get the Vikemon out as like a hard play otherwise, because they'll be able to bounce level 5, but they won't be able to keep turn, and then the Ancient Garurumon will die, and it's like, okay, they did a check with it, and none of the rookies could suspend, so it's like super good in my opinion. If you find some Shotos and some Rapids, that really helps as well, because of the way that it works with similar in the style to Dex, where I mentioned prior, like if you have the Rapid out, it protects all your higher levels as well. Similarly, if you just like hard drop a Rapid, they can't bounce any of your level 6s. They can only attempt to bounce the Rapid with the Ancient Garurumon effect. So if they ever swing in or hard play it, the Rapid will just prevent it entirely. And even just hard playing the Rapid by itself out with the Shoto, if they ever swing in, you can immediately Vikemon, even if it makes it so that way they can't, you can't block them. You can Digivolve them twice down into the Kendo. They'll get the singular check-in, nothing else, and then they will die at the end of their turn if they don't die in security. And if they die at the end of their turn, they don't actually get the Tamer back, which is a super nice way of kind of slowing them down, which is good. Going wide is also useful for keeping your ace bodies up, as mentioned. Being able to just kind of have like 2 or 3 level 5s out because of your Zwart will leave them at a awkward position where if they swing in, they'll be able to get the bounce, but then they'll probably get aced as well in the crackback. Vikemon DDG, as mentioned before, prevents them from recouping value. You have to be careful against Crimson and against Heaven's Judgment because of the fact that we play so many Digimon by effect using the Zwart, and just the Dark Master stuff in general all play by effect, so Crimson kind of fucks us, as well as the statement that a lot of our level 5s are 6k DP, so they'll just be popped by Crimson. And then Heavens gives a lot of value to your opponent. Like, yes, they'll play it for 7, but they'll usually get a blue, a yellow, and then a red minimum. And then the base minus 6k, that's minus 24 in total. That'll usually allow them to pop around 2 aces, which will get them 8 memory, which makes Heavens a +1 memory gain, which is gross. Then Tamer Deletion, like Defeat and Quagga, can slow down and hurt them a lot as well. And then I think probably the most important thing for us to play around is getting comfortable and not respecting the hard play Enga, even for 12, can be really difficult to deal with. And the counter play. You have to be kind of aggro in this matchup. Obviously, you're going to be aggro in a lot of matchups, so it feels a bit like an oxymoron to mention that. But you really can't let them set up. Because, like I said, if we just kind of flood the field with our level 5 bodies, like, yes, you'll get the bounce, but then we'll punish you with a pretty powerful ace like the Vikemon, stopping you from recouping that value. Be aggro, but don't throw away the free value off the rookies. Like, if you have an Ukomon, try and get an extra Ukomon pump out, or one after that as well. Because we can't deal with those small bodies as easily without committing heavily to the board in some way to do that. They have a hard time removing the last small body. So if you just like stack up a bunch of aces, bounce a bunch of rookies. We don't play Valkyrie ace in the list like I have in the past. So the best thing we can do is Vikemon, stopping them from swinging, and then kind of going from there. Never shirk away from hard dropping Enga for 12. It protects the D-Digi. It protects from D-Digivolve as well. So yeah, if you hard drop it for 12, the only thing that we can do is really pop it, which unless you recoup some of the value. On to Royal Knight. The counterplay is Vikemon stops the OTK. If you just, again, it's similar to Demon Lords. If you just hard drop it, your opponent will want to pop the Yggdrasil, but if they do, they won't be able to swing with any of their bodies, so they don't have lethal there. Shoto makes them have to have an extra body. So for every Shoto mother you have out in field, is another extra body they have to have in order to swing over and kill you. Paladin lets us go super long, and it also provides an OTK mechanism if they do use the Yggdrasil, because you can just swing and bottom deck a bunch of their stuff over and over and over again. They have to have 2 Jesmons out in order to make it so that way Paladin isn't a way to kind of clear board. Because 2 Jesmons provide a big enough DP boost to your board that with blocker, they'll beat over Paladin. But if you only have 1 Jesmon and you bottom deck that whenever you swing, even if your board has blocker, we're going to be able to get over pretty much everything. Understand that you won't be able to kill them, so this is going to be like a single 50-minute match, and play that with that understanding. Like, you're never going to be able to kill the Royal Knight player because of how efficient their removal is. Like, there's going to 1-for-1 removal every single body you get out. So even if you're checking in 1 check every turn for 5 turns, they're probably going to have their stack built up by then, and they'll kill you on the crackback. So trying to go for that, I feel like, is kind of a misplay. Though it's not as bad, its swinging is not as bad as it is in the Demon Lords matchup because they interact with the trash a lot less than a Demon Lord player does. And the counter play. You can't 100% kill, never pop Drazel. Never, ever, ever pop your Drazel to like get like a huge amount of value instead of like a really strong board, because you're just asking to lose to your opponent at that point. If you're ever going bar for bar with this deck on like hard playing big bodies, you're going to lose 100% of the time. It does not matter what you're playing. Even if you're playing out like fucking bangers, like on play effect ruin modes or fucking death X's or whatever the fuck you want to be playing out, you're going to lose to this deck 100% of the time because you're not going to be able to keep up with the value trade that they have going on. They're going to be getting out more bodies every single turn than you can. We're more memory efficient than like just hard dropping a 13k body. Like we're or a 13 cost body. Like we are super memory efficient when it comes to your opponent hard dropping 13 memory a turn. So keep that in mind. Do never pop Drazel if you can't 100,000% kill your opponent. Bouncing Vikemon is troll. Never bounce the Vikemon. Always pop it. Always pop the Vikemon. The amount of times that I played against Arcaes and they will just use the Ulforce to bounce my Vikemon into hand, I'm like, okay, I play out Vikemon again next turn, and now you're in the same position, except now you have 1 less card in hand. Like I don't know. It is what it is. Don't search and draw unless you need to. Their only real win con is decking you out, or you making a misplay. So just don't do either of those things. Never pop Drazel without 100% kill. Don't bounce Vike. Don't draw unless you need to. They can kill you if you're dumb as well, obviously. Like if you let them Paladin your post Drazel effect. But obviously that falls into the don't pop Drazel unless you can 100% kill. Onto the Mirage counterplay. Careful when searching while they have a Mirage out, because you will give them like 3 memory on top of the 6 memory you just gave them. Unfortunately, this deck has hand size issues in the opposite sense, where your hand will be like 15-20 cards deep towards certain matchups and certain portions of the game. So your Mirage opponent will just be gaining a fuck ton of memory. Understand that your aces will be bounced a lot as well, so you kind of play around that whenever you can. And by play around it, I mean like mentally accept it, so that way you don't get like mentally destroyed by them bouncing your like 6th ace in a row or your 5th level 5 in a row, and then you have like no level 5s. Just kind of like accept that this is probably what's going to happen, and then try to mitigate that damage as much as possible. Edamon is the only way to actually remove a body and be detrimental to their raising stack, because of the fact that like if you target a stack on field while they have something in raising, even though they know that stack is probably going to die here from the Edamon acing something, if they promote out the smaller stack, you can actually interact with that as well by Mega Gargoing it and stunning it completely. And then Rapid is a godsend, obviously. Rapid is crazy good, Rapid's insane, Rapid's disgustingly strong, Rapid's gross. Ugh, I love Rapid so much. Hard dropping Rapid makes it so that way you can just... you're just safe for the turn, pretty much. Like, the most they're going to be able to do is get like a check-in, or bounce the security and they get like a check-in. So what would happen essentially is you drop the Rapid with the Shoto out. It can't be bounced. They then promote. They make it so that way they can't be blocked. And then they go into Mirage. They can't bounce a level 5 or lower, so they bounce top card security. They gain like 5 memory from it because your hand is so fucking big. And then they swing into security. And then they unsuspend because you have so many cards in hand. And then you can't block them, but I mean, you can either Vikemon, and like, yeah, they'll have jamming, but I mean, that forces them to have more Mirages in hand, but the better option is Mega Gargo. Mega Gargo, you suspend it, they can't bounce anything else with the burst mode in hand, and they're going to die next turn. So a lot of really good ways to kind of interact. They also can't OTK you anymore. So good. The counterplay is this matchup is easy if they don't find Shoto Rapid. That's just facts. If they don't find Shoto Rapid specifically, this matchup is really easy for you. You need to find a lot of jamming and OTK very quickly. They don't play security bombs, so you don't need to play around that. You just need jamming and the ability to kill them very fast. Don't lead a body out if you can help it. Like Edamon can slow you down a lot because of the way that it interacts with your board and the way it can interact with your raising. And then Mirage will give you like +3 memory fairly easy in this matchup. So if you can play around that, play around with that amount of memory pretty easily from the start of your turn, understanding it. For Galaxy Toolbox, the counterplay is Hexablow can go past your mother. So you have to understand that that's not actually a way to defend yourself against Hexablow. You'll have to ace first, like using Vikemon, and then block with the mother. Mother is affected by the game mechanic itself, not by the... It's not a game rule targeting the mother, like an effect. It's a game rule raw. So it affects just the board state. So your mother can still die to Ice Clad. The only removal we care about is the bouncing of the Mirage. All the other removal, like Apollo or Hexablow, don't really matter to us. Like, we don't need to kill them in this matchup. Again, they're so good at drawing their own cards, and their goal is to kill us, that APOC is a pretty good win con in this matchup. So we only need to care about Mirage being really annoying. And again, Mirage will gain them a lot of memory. So acing them is deadly in both senses of the word. They're going to be able to kind of stun our aces with the Hexablast, so we won't be getting a lot of the really strong when attacking effects of our aces. But just getting an ace out against them, because of the way they are as a deck, like they're not going to be able to pump out like a Mirage every single turn because he's not searchable. So they may get like 2 or 3 Mirages out, and then at a certain point they're just going to run out of stacks to kill you with, and then they'll die. Like, I think the typical, unless they're getting the most amount of value from every single one of their stacks, which will give them about 2 stacks per stack. As I know that sounds weird, but they can like split off the Lunamon, put another like thing building up from the side using their current stack. If they can't do that, they can get like 2 or 3 stacks in like a game before they kind of just deck out and die. Edamon is really good in this matchup. He's just good in this matchup. There's nothing else I can really say. He's just good in this matchup. Rapid's also great. Again, if your opponent's going to be trying to Mirage you, Rapid is going to be fantastic. And then you just run them out of their top end and you'll win the game. So you just kind of have to weather the storm of Galaxy Toolbox, and once you do, you just win. And the counterplay is sticking a Mirage isn't enough to win, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. Similar to like against Demon Lords. Even though you stuck a Mirage against Demon Lords, they're just going to drop a Creepy Mon and kill you. And then you have to kind of work your way back up. So you have to kind of try and spread your stack out as much as you can across your board. Like separate your Lunamon, get like the extra stack building already, and on like a Mirage maybe, and then they can't like search if their hand's a little bricked up and stuff, but they can always just like hard drop like a Vike and then Digivolve you, and then you're in the same kind of rough position. The security is really big, so red sources help a lot. In order to guarantee safety, you have to be over 16k DP, so 17k DP is the threshold for guaranteeing your safety, assuming you don't have the jamming of the Galgamon and your level 4 stack. Try to get as much value out of every stick as possible. It'll probably be on your next turn, as mentioned. On to Jesmon. Jesmon counterplay. Remember that you have a decoy. Remember that they have decoy, I mean. So you can't just like hard drop like a pile Mon attempting to delete their Jessex, because they'll just decoy it. So if you don't lose to forgetting that, you're in a much better spot than I was in my first match against it. They also tend to remove by battle, so Digivolve is really nice in actually surprisingly lowering their DP down to about like, I think it's like 7 or 8k, maybe 9k for their level 5. Edamon is nice, but watch out, they can get Magnamon X antibody in their stack, which can be like a little scary by like being immune and stuff. I think there's a way that they can do it when attacking, but I could be wrong on that. I know they can do it with the option card that they play, the white 6-cost option that lets you activate it when Digivolving effect one of your Royal Knights or Jesmon. Vikemon stops their sisters from swinging, so that's really good for stopping your opponent from killing you. Paladin's a nice way to kill them as well with how many bodies they have without sources in the crackback. And then the counterplay is play around the ace if possible. Like understand like, hey, I need this much DP to still beat over my opponent if they Vicemon me. And make those judgments with that information in mind. Try to get Magnet X into rotation as soon as possible. Just because you don't have a great way to deal with your opponent's level 5 bodies that are kind of sitting out there. Like your opponent has like 3 level 5 bodies out. Even if you're like immune to like being bounced or deleted and stuff, they can still interact with your board in like really weird ways, like Vikemoning, that I think can hamper you. So Magnet X is the only way to really guarantee your safety. Your stack will be Digivolved. Just accept that, and again, similar to the playing around the ace, understand that the information is there, that you will be Digivolved probably on their turn, and so what's the game plan on the crackback? And then watch out for your deck size. They can always APOC for game randomly. Like in game 1 against this deck, whenever I played it in the Ultimate Cup, my opponent did 5 checks to me very, very fast. But they also used like the option card like 3 times, which trashed the cards. They did an insane amount of searching and drawing and cycling to a point where they were down to 4 cards left in deck by like their turn like 5. And I just APOC'd them, and they're like, "Oh, right, you can do that." So keep that in mind as well. A lot of decks that if you're running low on deck size consistently in a lot of matchups, you have to watch out for the Apocalypse in this one. So as long as you keep that in lock, and I think that's everything for all the decks I've decided to make little primers for. If there's a deck that you think I should have made a primer for that I didn't, please let me know in the comments, and I may do that. This was a lot of effort and work and research and time, so if you guys like this video, please leave a comment, let me know, subscribe, leave a like, etc, etc. I'm very tired. I'm gonna go to edit, and I'll hopefully have this up tonight, Wednesday the 16th, but if I don't, it will be out on the 17th.